All right, this is line 544 of Book 1. The Trojans are speaking to Dido and trying to get her to give them help. They've been sort of stranded in Libya, where Carthage is, and so they're speaking to her. This one starts out with an open quote, but that really shouldn't be there because he's been talking. Aeneid has been talking for a while now, so I don't know why there's a little open quote there. Rex erat Aeneas nobis. Nobis is a dative of possession. You see these with the word est, and so erat here is the imperfect of est. The king for us was Aeneas, or we had Aeneas as king. It sounds better in English here to say the king for us was Aeneas, I think. A lot of times you can switch out the word was for the word had, like we had this or we had that. There was for us this thing. So the king for us was Aeneas. Quo justior alter, nec pietate fuit, nec bello maior et armis. So let's just go through the grammar on this. The book will tell you quo is an ablative of comparison, which is good because we have some comparative adjectives here. Justior would be one of them. Justior is nominative, so it refers back to Aeneas, who was also nominative earlier. And then in the next line, pietate, bello, and armis are all ablatives of respect, which is also something you expect to see with comparatives. Sort of like maior, there's our comparative, like greater in respect to what. So those are all that respect in which there is no one greater than Aeneas. So in pietate, in bello, and in armis. So the first part there, quo justior alter. Justior means sort of more just, more fair. Let's see if the book has anything. Justus, fair, righteous, more righteous. There's kind of an understood not in there. It's you don't get it till like your next. So than whom another more just is literally what it said, which is like saying like there's not another person more just than him, and the than him is kind of your quo. That's a relative pronoun. Than whom another more just, and then your net is like there was not, nec fuit, there was not. So there was not another person, alter, which is where we get the word like alternate, another person, more just. Fuit is the perfect of est, so we have erat in 544 and fuit in 545, and they're the same verb, they're just different tenses. Erat's imperfect, fuit is perfect. And there was not, so anyone more just, more righteous. And then we kind of have these things that going off of maior. And there was not anyone greater. Pietate in there. Pietas is a very important part of the Aeneid, and as part of Aeneas' characterization. He is very pious, or he has a lot of pietas. It's important that you don't translate it as pious or piety. In English, this is one word you really need to find another word. The book says loyalty, devotion, or duty. There's things like responsibility, that kind of thing, doing the things you're supposed to do. So in loyalty, you could say, or in devotion, or in his duty. Nor greater in war and in sort of weapons. So in fighting is the idea. So, Aeneas, they miss him. They know he's still alive. And they're going to talk about that they're not quite sure. Quem si fato virum servant si vescitur aura aetherea. Quem refers back to Aeneas, whom, and it goes with virum, so it's kind of hard to say in English. Whom man? So you might want to say something like which man si fata servant, if the fates save. So, like, if the fates save this man. So, which man, if the fates save him? There's an understood him, we'd have to say in English. Si vescitur aura aetherea. If vescitur takes an ablative, so aura and aetherea are ablatives there. Vescitur means to feed on something or to breathe. So if he's breathing, and you can tell it's deponent because we translated it actively, but it has that tor ending that's passive. If he's breathing aura aetherea, like aura is just air, breeze. Aetherea is like the upper air, ethereal air. Not the air in the sky necessarily, but this is contrasted to the air under the ground. So if he's still in the land of the living, up on top of the earth, instead of in the land of the dead, down below the earth. This is a nice example of enjambment, where if you were reading this and you were a Roman, you'd be reading from left to right, like we do in English, and the word order wouldn't be as difficult as it is for English speakers. And you'd kind of get to the end of the sentence and you would think it was done. Si vescitur aura, if he's breathing air. And then you get to the next sentence and it's kind of like a little surprise. Oh, that phrase wasn't done. Aetherea. So like, oh, not just if he's still breathing air, but if he's still breathing upper air. And the idea of the sentence sort of straddles two different lines, which is what enjambment is. It means sort of being... It's like having 2 feet on either side of a doorway. The idea, it comes from French, the word enjambment. So if he's still breathing the air up above, neque ad hoc crudelis occubat umbris, and not your neque. Ad hoc means like to here, but this is not literally like a physically to this place, or so it's sort of temporally so far, so to this place and time so far. Crudelis and umbris go together. That's your ibus is endings, and they're ablative of place. So in the cruel shadows, bitter shadows. Occubat, and this is your verb, which Aeneas is still the subject. Right, if he's breathing air, and if he's not, if he's so far not occubating in the crudelibus umbris. Occubat we saw back when Aeneas was describing Hector and how he wished he had died, and how lucky everyone was that had died at Troy, and they were laying there dead on the fields of Troy and underneath the walls of Troy. Occubat is that same word. So if he's so far not lying dead in the crudelis, I'd rather not say cruel because that's what it looks like, but I don't know if I want to say bitter and bloody either, which is what the book suggests. Cruel shadows or cruel shades of the underworld is understood. The shadows of the underworld. The shadows of the dead. So if he's if he's still alive. If the fates have saved him and he's breathing air and he's not lying dead, non metus. Metus is fear. And there's a lot of things missing here, like there is not fear for us. So no fear. Officio necte certase priorem poeniteat. Officio is ablative, and it's an ablative of respect. Te is accusative. Te is always the accusative of to, you. Certase is really certawisse, which is a perfect infinitive. Kerta wisse. And when we see accusatives and infinitives next to each other, we think about indirect statements. So kind of keep that in mind. Priorem is accusative, so it must go with the te. And then poiniteat this is going to kind of make it hard in English to translate. It's a volative subjunctive, which is sort of when you're wanting something. So you're telling someone, like, here, the book says, do not regret. Kind of like a command, kind of like a polite, less than, I mean, a command is when you tell someone to do something. And a volative subjunctive is kind of like, I want you to do this, but you don't have to. It'd be nice. And this is impersonal, which is what makes it strange in English to translate. May it not be painful that you, I'm just doing this literally, I don't know if I would write this down because it's going to sound really weird in English, that you first, priorem, have kerta wisse. It's actually related to the word kertamen, which is what we do after school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It means to fight or struggle, to contest something. So let it not be painful that you first have fought in respect to duty, is literally what it says, and that sounds terrible in English. The book suggests, do not regret to have been the first to contend in a rivalry of kindness. So do not regret to have been the first to contend in respect to kindness. That's the idea. And you can kind of put it together in whatever way sounds best, as long as you keep the Latin grammar structure as closely as you can. So he's saying that even if Aeneas is alive, that they should help him, right? It's not shameful to be kind, to do your duty to others, and it shouldn't shame Dido to be the first to be trying, right, to sort of vie with Aeneas in respect to kindness, to doing her duty. Then we kind of change tracks, and he mentions these other people. So it kind of like, if Aeneas is dead, sunt et siculis regionibus urbes armaque. There are also, et can mean and, or it can mean even, and here you might want to say even. There are even, siculis regionibus is going to be ablative of place where, in Sicilian regions. Urbes armaque, cities and weapons. Troianoque a sanguine clarus Acestes. And they mentioned Acestes earlier, I believe. And famous Acestes. And then Troiano and sanguine are both ablative, so they go together, sort of from Trojan blood. So Clarus and Acestes go together. Famous Acestes from Trojan blood. So they're mentioning that these people, well, these Trojans really, live in Sicily, and they have cities and stuff. So there's no fear for them. They're not super worried. They would like Dido to help them, but they're not there to pillage and all that good stuff. Quas satem ventis liceat subducere classem. quasatom and classum go together, so it's kind of like an enclosed line where the two things on either side go together. Quasatom means shaken up. Or like shattered. And kind of, you can see, it's kind of a word picture, shaken up. The word shaken up is far away from the fleet of ships. So it's kind of been shaken away from where it should be. Wentis is ablative of means. Likeat is another impersonal volative subjunctive. Likeat we get the word license from. It means like it is permitted, and it's always permitted for someone to do something in Latin. If you want to say like, can I go to the bathroom? You say, is it permitted for me to go ad latrinum, to the bathroom? You can't say like, I am permitted to do this. You have to say, it is permitted for me. It's always impersonal. So it is always the subject. Subducere is your infinitive, the thing that is permitted to do. Subducere is just duco, ducere was sub. So to draw up. And sub really means under, but here it means like from under. So the ships are sort of low and you draw them up onto shore is the idea. And a classum is just your fleet. So may it, sort of let it be permitted. You gotta get your volative, subjunctive idea in there. May it be permitted, let it be permitted. And the other stood is for us. But it's not in the Latin. To draw up the ships, or the fleet, quaesoptam ventis, shaken by the winds. Et silvis optare trabes et stringere ramos. So we have some more infinitives that go with likeat, may be permitted for us to shape, optare, trabes, which are beams. Sort of in the forests. So we're gonna cut down trees. Shape them in the forests. Silvis is ablative place where. Et stringere ramos. Stringer means to trim, and remos means oars. They're not going to trim oars, they're going to trim something into oars is the idea. Fashion oars. So because this isn't really the direct object, the book gives you this little note that it's the accusative of the thing affected, which doesn't mean much except that they're not trimming the oars themselves, they're trimming something into oars. So if I were translating this, I would say to shape beams in the forests and trim oars. Trim out oars, you might say. Si dator Italiam sociis et rege recepto tendere. We've seen dator to mean granted before, and here would be another place. If it is given, doesn't really sound right, but if it is granted, and there's an understood, like for us, Italiam tendere, and then this sociis a rege recepto is ablative absolute. We saw dator as granted back when we were talking about Dido. It's like Jupiter granted to her to build a new city and to establish laws. I can't remember what the second thing was. So if it is permitted to tendere, which we've seen a few times, to hasten to Italy. So this is a really Italiam is placed to where without a preposition. When we would expect one in prose, like in Caesar, we'd expect a preposition. So if it is permitted to hasten to Italy, sociis et rege recepto. So with our sociis and rege having been receptoed, with our companions and king having been sort of gotten back, having been recovered. So if we can get our people back and go to Italy, and then this ut clause here is a purpose clause. So if it is permitted to do these things so that Italiam laeti latiumque petimus, so that we can peto petere, so that we can seek. Laeti is your nominative. So you can either say so that we can happily and turn it into an adverb, which is common to do when Latin has a nominative adjective like this, or you can keep it as an adjective, which is going to sound a little strange in English, and say so that we happy might seek, and then you have Italiam Latiumque, Italy and Latium. Which again is interesting. They don't know they're going to Latium. They're not quite sure. Like they shouldn't know the name of the place they're going. No one's told them. Aeneas did that before earlier. He mentioned Latium, and really, they don't know about it yet. They just know they're going to Italy. You could, if you wanted, this may be a stretch, call this an interlocked word order or synthesis. Italiam and Latium are both accusative and they go together. Now this is where you have to stretch things out. Sometimes when you're trying to find these rhetorical devices, the verb and the nominative, because they're so closely related, right, can count as one element of your rhetorical device. So you could call laiti and petamis. They're not both verbs, they're not both nominatives, but they are intrinsically related because anytime you have a verb, you have something that does it. So if you have the nominative spelled out and it's not just understood, they are linked in a very integral kind of way. So that we happy might seek Italy and Latium. I want to get to 560, but I'm afraid that if I let this go too long, then that's what corrupts the files. So I'm going to make another one. It'll be kind of short, and you'll get to reread that one too. Okay.